If you're a believer in the power of kindness, this story is for you. It'll change your world. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know where you are. Every story starts with a small act. This one started with free repair. Let's start. Carter Hayes wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the fading light outside the garage. In Millbrook, Connecticut, it was a peaceful evening with the sound of cicadas and the flickering lights of street lamps. As he resigned himself to closing his cell, the engine sprang from his window, causing him to struggle to breathe. Moments later, an unknown black sedan entered the driveway, producing smoke and lingering. Carter sighed. The driver's door opened slowly, and a woman in her mid-30s was present. She was dressed elegantly but clearly shaken. Her hands gripped the steering wheel before she exhaled as if she had been holding her breath for miles. She revealed to him that she was Isabel Morrison. Her eyes were blue and distant, resembling someone with an abundance of untold stories. The passenger window rolled down, and a young girl stood nearby, her round face illuminated by the soft orange light of the setting sun. "Mom, are you all right with me?" the girl muttered softly. "Yes, sweetheart," Isabel replied. Carter walked over, his voice soft and calming. "Do you need help?" She nodded in disbelief. "I'm not knowledgeable about cars, so that's fine." He grinned slightly. "Very well, I am." He lifted the hood and leaned in. The aroma of slick oil and metal washed over him. After a few minutes, he realized the problem was solved. A worn-out alternator wire was causing the power to be cut off. He glanced at Isabel, who was anxiously trying to comfort him. Something about her expression indicated tiredness, not just from driving, but from life itself. Carter casually asked, examining the tension in his seat belt. She paused before nodding off, aware that it was a long journey from New York, but he didn't take any further action. It should be an easy fix. The rain started just as he began to tighten the connections. It wasn't heavy at all, just a light drizzle tapping on the car's metal. Carter was unfazed by the weather. With her coat wrapped around her, Isabel stood up. Myler looked on with curiosity, watching as she swung her legs and climbed out of the window. Her soft voice interrupted her husband's actions, saying, "Daddy, I know, he did a lot of laundry." Carter froze for half a second and then smiled warmly. "He's definitely brave," Mommy says. The words persisted in the air for an extended period. Carter didn't inquire about her father's situation. The tone of her voice conveyed enough about it to him. When he finished the repair, the rain had turned into rain. He stepped back, opened the door, and the engine began to run. Isabel's face softened, a sense of relief washed over her. "How much money are you owed?" she asked. "It's all right, I'm just happy to help," he said softly. "Please, please." He shook his head and said, "No problem." "Think of it as a neighborly act," Isabel muttered, unsure of how to respond. "Thank you very much," she said. Carter held onto his sleeve. Mila was beside him, her shoes stained with water from the puddles. With a resounding affirmation, she gazed at him and whispered, "She's my mom. May I marry her?" Carter blinked in disbelief, leaving Isabel with an embarrassed expression. "Mila," she exclaimed, reaching for her daughter. The little girl remained tethered to her body and giggled. She let out a quick sigh of laughter, but it wasn't quite the same. Carter chuckled softly, finding it hard to believe that he had been laughing this way for so long. "It's a kind match for you," he said. Isabel grimaced and brushed her wet hair. He led them back to their car, placing an umbrella over Mare. She thanked him once more, her voice almost shaking. He shrugged off the idea of helping, acknowledging that it's not mandatory, but sometimes people just need someone to stop. Those words resonate deeply with her. She opened her mouth as if to say something else, then closed it again. Instead, she looked back at him with an overwhelming amount of gratitude. As the sedan pulled away, its tail lights fading into the mist, Carter stood under the dim light of his garage light, lost in thought. The sound of the engine vanishing down the road brought back many recollections. After 3 years since the accident, there was something alive inside his 10-year-old daughter Ruby's garage, where she slept late into the night with the scent of her perfume still lingering in the air, leaving a sense of rejoicing and hope that his life had finally come to an end. "Dad, are you still here?" He smiled. "Just finished, sweetheart. Let's wash ourselves for dinner." The wet footprints leading the way were seen by her. "Don't you agree, Carter?" Carter nodded softly, indicating that it was just a mom and her daughter. With a smile on her face, she acknowledged that she always supports others, even when she doesn't. He laughed softly. I guess I'm not good at rejecting things. As the rain drenched the house and Carter sat by the window with a cup of coffee, he observed that the woman's eyes held the same weight for him as they did for his beloved, even when the world seemed to devastate them. He wondered where she was, and if she had made it to her destination before she left. Despite knowing that this was his last encounter with her, Carter couldn't forget about her. A few miles away, Isabel was at a roadside motel observing Mare's restful sleep in the back seat. The car engine ceased to function, the rain transforming into something luscious. She picked up an unfolded photo and looked at the man in uniform, which made her feel proud. I hope you're doing well, she said softly, tears falling down her face. We're on the brink of safety. She reminisced about the mechanic's calm demeanor and his ability to treat Mare as if she were a human being. Isabel glanced at her phone and saw that there was no signal. Her heart was filled with hope for the first time in months, despite the fact that the world outside had become perilous. Upon returning to his house, Carter found Ruby asleep with an old photo of her mother in his hand. He brushed off some hair from her forehead and said, "Good night, kiddo." When he looked at himself in the mirror, there were tired eyes, a worn-out heart, and some warmth inside. It was as if they had helped the stranger fix her car. It's conceivable that it had restored a portion of him. The following morning, the sun shone through the clouds, reflecting off the road. As Carter brewed his coffee, he was ready for another typical day, but the air felt quieter yet more vibrant, and somewhere in that stillness, something lingered. Maybe life isn't quite right. The woman he aided last night would soon bring a new level of truth, danger, and love. Carter Hayes noticed the black sedan before even putting it into service in the garage. It's too late for him to be surprised. The car sat across the street, with tinted windows and silent engines, as if it had been watching all night. He didn't think much of it at first. Customers sometimes arrived early, but when he saw the driver's door open and Isabel walking out, his chest tightened in excitement. She had lost her calm demeanor and her hair was tied back tightly. "Isabel," he whispered with care. She quickly crossed the street, her voice shivering. I was unsure of where to go. He suggested that she stay in the garage, away from the road. As the heavy door rolled down behind them, the scent of motor oil and steel awaited. "What's going on?" he asked, wiping his hands in panic. Isabel hesitated before saying firmly, "They found me." "They did. I don't know how they did it." Carter frowned. "Who knew about me?" She swallowed her words softly, her voice barely audible. "The men I testified against, the ones I've been hiding from, slipped into place." He listened to the ticking of a nearby clock for an extended period. "Are you under some kind of cover-up?" he inquired. Isabel nodded and shook her hands slightly, wondering if she had any immunity. "I used to work for a finance company that laundered money for criminal families. I exposed them and gave them everything, but not all of them remained in jail." Her voice pierced on the last note. After a while, Carter breathed deeply, attempting to reconstruct the events that occurred. "Do you believe she nodded off? Someone contacted the motel's front desk and asked for my name." "It's not meant to be." Just as two black SUVs approached the garage, Isabel screamed and yapping at Mila, who had been sleeping in the passenger seat. "Stay with me," Carter said, quickly approaching the entrance. Nevertheless, two agents emerged with badges under their coats, signaling their support for Isabel Morrison. "We're here for you, U.S. Marshals," one agent said firmly. Carter looked at her with confusion. Isabel's face appeared pale but steady. "They've been guarding us for a while," the taller agent stated. "Mom, do you need to be moved soon?" Isabel's voice sounded hollow. "My daughter is in urgent need of a life. We'll do our best, but we don't have to move anytime soon," Mila said, blinking irritated. Isabel gave her forehead kisses. It was only a short while for Carter, who was now frozen in time between instinct and logic. The sight of them, frightened and displaced, had an unexpected impact on him. He reached out to the agents. "It's not feasible to re-establish her. Let her rest for a day here." The lead marshal looked at him with suspicion. As a father and mechanic, Carter assured him that he didn't need another car ride tonight. The agent hesitated and gave a reluctant look to his partner. "Very well, but keep the doors shut." As the SUVs departed, Carter assisted Isabel and Ruby in entering the office, setting up the small space heater and obtaining blankets. The girls quickly connected over crayons and a shared love for pancakes. Their laughter filled the space. Carter sat beside Isabel in silence while brewing coffee and watching the rain fall through the window. She shrugged. "You shouldn't have to get involved if you wanted to run. It's just not what you're used to," he said. The road becomes longer as a result. She glared at him again. "You've lost your spouse, right?" Carter's throat trembled. 3 years ago, I was driving under the influence, and now my 5-year-old daughter seems to be stronger than I am. After arriving, Isabel's face softened as she declared, "You're a good father." Ruby seemed relieved, and so was Ma. "You've taken great care of her, and now she's looking away with a guilt-filled expression. I thought I was safe, but every time we move, I wonder if I'm just telling her to be careful." Carter leaned in. "You're teaching her to endure. That's not the same as being afraid." The rain intensified, reminding me that the world never came to a halt. Hours passed. The girls dozed off, their hair strewn around the desk. Carter revisited the hairs and returned to the seat where Isabel was seated. Her countenance had faded, exhaustion tugging at her. "Thank you," she said. "You don't owe me anything," he said with a smirk. "Yes, I do." I was given a spot to rest, so Carter sat quietly beside her, absorbing the sound of the heater and the rain outside. As soon as the sun came out, Ruby woke up early and yawned. "Is it breakfast?" Mila asked me, exclaiming. "Do you have any pancakes for us to eat?" Isabel asked with a blinked look before she realized where she was. When she saw her daughter's once-in-a-lifetime laughter, she didn't look back and smiled. Carter nodded. Pancakes were present. As the girls departed, Isabel muttered, "It's been a while since she last laughed like that." Carter provided her with food and suggested that she should laugh more. Later that day, Carter uncovered her on the phone with agents. They couldn't be together forever. Despite the fact that there was only one more day left, the look she gave him after hanging him was all-consuming with a blend of fear and faith. Chaos mingled with comfort. She whispered that they would be moved to a different location tomorrow with new names. Carter reacted by shaking his hand. "It's as if you've gone through this before." Isabel chuckled bitterly. 5 times, every new name has a fresh imprint on your soul. She drew a blank stare at him as she approached, her eyes shining with delight. "This time I met someone who makes me want to stop running." He swallowed deeply. The words lingered between them like shattered glass. Neither of them had the courage to break free from the peace that was within them. Inside, Ruby and Ma were giggling, their hands smudging with chalk and leaving messed-up hearts on the pavement. Isabel looked at them with a soft voice. They looked like sisters. "They sound like them too," Carter exclaimed with a smile. "The agents came back that night. One of them firmly assured us that we move at dawn, and Isabel nodded and resigned." Carter tried to stay calm for Ruby, but the thought of them leaving made a hollow sensation in his heart. Isabel carried her small bag, carefully folding Mare's sweater. "You'll be fine," she said. He reached for her hand. "If you're ever in need of a place, I'm here for you," she muttered between him and her eyes. When dawn arrived, the girls embraced each other. Ruby presented Mila with one of her playthings. "Don't forget me, Ma," she said softly. "I'll keep you posted." Isabel gazed at the man who had given her everything while the SUV door closed and then turned back to the garage. As the sun shone through, Carter stood in the dark, his thoughts divided between the life he had known and the one that had just left the garage undisturbed. Despite having lent her a wrench to fix things, Carter held it in his hand for an inordinate amount of time, with tears streaming down his face in reflection. This moment was especially poignant for him as the road was so empty. He didn't know when or how it would happen, but he had a feeling that this was not the end. The storm from Isabel's past had only just begun, and yet Carter stood outside the garage, with his hair still wet and his hands still dirty from the recent events. He used to think of himself as someone whose life had already been written, a husband who had loved him before and lost his own. He was also an obstinate father who wanted his daughter to grow up among engines and tools. But now that he was with Isabel and Ma, something new has come to his mind. He wasn't sure if it was love or hope. Perhaps both, and for the first time in years, Millbrook's quiet nights provided him with a sense of company. The town had experienced many small dramas, late bills, rumors at the diner, but what unfolded around them had sounded like something out of the movies. His pulse raced once more as he saw a black SUV. Isabel had been on the right track. The individuals who had previously pursued her were back, and this time they didn't want to intimidate her. They were desperate. The crime family she testified against had lost millions, and her escape had humiliated them in court. Now they're seeking revenge. She looked at him uncertainly, but he said quietly and calmly before closing the door, whispering, "No, you're not safe here." She wasn't running, but she was trusting. The night they came for her, Carter was ready. He had spent several days studying the layout of his garage and arranging some unexpected items that only a mechanic could orchestrate. As the black van entered, its headlights flickered, and Carter stood in the shadows with a wrench in his hand. The first person who entered didn't realize the oil slick until his boot slipped under him. Another person reached for his gun, but the lights went out while Carter's voice echoed through the darkness. "You chose the wrong garage." The aftermath was disorderly, with engines revving, tools crashing, and the roar of a truck engine that Carter had rigged to trap the attacker's vehicle. Isabel had already given the warning, but by the time the FBI arrived, the situation was resolved and agents began to take statements late into the night. Isabel sat in Carter's office with her hands tied around a cup of coffee, while Mila slept on her lap in the corner, their small faces shining brightly under the flickering light. When the lead agent finally told her she had been cleared of the charges, she broke down in tears. Carter remained silent. He placed his hand over hers, indicating that she was no longer alone, and the weight of her years seemed to be lifted. When she looked up, her eyes revealed the indescribable strength of words. Days turned into weeks. Millbrook reverted to its typical routine. The early morning bakery, the old men arguing over baseball at the park, and the kids jogging along Main Street. In Carter's garage, there was a change. Isabel began to assist with billing bills, entertaining Ruby and Ma with her sketches and laughs. The sound of two little girls' giggles became the soundtrack to his days. Every time he worked, she would look at him, his face soft, curious, grateful. He'd catch her staring, and they both smiled like they knew that this time, fate had played a kind of game. One evening, as the sun shrouded the town in the glow, Carter sat behind the hood and wiped his hands together to reveal Mila, whom he had hand-picked from the side of the road. "You can stay with us forever," she whispered softly, her voice ringing with approval. As Carter froze, his eyes filled with tears and his heart raced forward. Isabel stood just feet away from him, confidently stating, "She's not afraid to speak the truth. Do you believe her?" With a smile on his face, Carter observed as Ruby ran towards them, her cheeks flaunting and her eyes gleamed with the sun's rays. Isabel slowly moved closer to him, and the world appeared to be vaporized by the scent of gasoline and oil. After years of work and fear, Carter took a hand and suggested fixing hearts instead of cars. Isabel smiled and said, "Let's start with mine." The next morning, as the garage lights dimmed, she sat on the porch with Ruby asleep. She tucked Mila into bed and the wind chimed into her, and she whispered the peaceful lullaby. This was the kindest remark that Carter had ever made. Despite not having what he desired from life, it provided him with a reason to believe in himself once more. In that small Connecticut town, love was discovered through small acts of kindness, free repairs, whispers, and promises made. As Carter looked into the garage where it all had begun, his thoughts were watered down. Some hearts are made of people who won't stop turning, no matter how many times they've been damaged, just like the wind. The night drew nearer to his bed, and he grinned to himself. He no longer served as a mechanic, but was now an ornate father and protector who had found love again in unexpected ways. And with his closed eyes, I could hear Mila's voice whispering with the stillness that had enveloped him. "My mother is dear to our union, so I ask you to marry her. He will do the same this time.